These are very interesting, these next three. And this is more to your question. How we've made and grown these. So all of these are head pruned or bush vines.
Okay.
And we've got to thank Fred Peterson from Sonoma, from Dry Creek, who was our mentor. We did some bit of work with him, and his kids came out and worked here. And Fred said, "Let's plant Zinfandel here and do it, but you got to treat it badly.
Yep.
In other words, don't irrigate it,
Yep.
bush vine it." And when we looked at some of the vineyards around Sacramento and south, where they're massive yields and big bunches, 20 tonne to the acre, making very weak or blush wine, it wasn't for us. But then we looked at Sonoma and Amador and looked at Paso Robles, three great Zinfandel areas where the yields are restricted. I started to really love this. Is a genuine new wine style because we've suffered because we've just really had Cabernet, Shiraz and Chardonnay, and we've all tried to find different forms of it. And I think there's a genuine reason that we should be looking at other varieties. We need to look at other cultures and other countries. So it's no accident that there's been real consumer interest in what we've done with Zinfandel, as there is for Carignan, as there is for Tempranillo, as there is for even Vermentino in the white form, where we're going into Italy and Spain and Portugal, some of the Mediterranean area, southern France, and we're finding new regions and new things to make and that are more authentic for us. So what we did, the reason to go head pruned was, Fred said, be organic if you can. Very difficult with Zinfandel, but get the berries small and the bunches small. And the only way to do that was head pruning. And I did a lot of research with a great professor of viticulture called Richard Smart, who did his PhD at Cornell University with Nelson Shawless, and they did a lot of work with this American aero Scott Henry. And in fact, I met his granddaughter recently, but he was developed this trellising system which maximised yield. And on doing that, we started to look at yield factors in different vineyard trellising to try and examine which was the right way to go. There's a lot of convention has been you do the same thing no matter where you are, and of course that doesn't respect soil or water or market forces or the growth habit or the varietal differences. So when I got to my own place here in early 1990s, when I took over the farm, planted new varieties and started to say, how do we do this differently? And Fred Peterson was a godsend with Zinfandel. Do it this way and you'll get it right. And there was 4 other vineyards of Zinfandel in the region, and all the other 3 are gone because they didn't do what Fred Peterson said I should do. So bush vines has 2 effects. One, of course, is that they are generally low to the ground. And we do know from my research that the bunches are smaller and the berries are smaller the closer they are to the ground. So you're actually bonsaiing them, right? So Zinfandel has bunches that can weigh in metric, 1 to 1.5 kilos. We want to get them to 400 or 500 grams, because if you're going organic, you don't have any weapons. Organics is you live or die by nature, so you find a natural way to do with it. You cannot put any sprays on this stuff because with the big bunches, big fat bunches, and it rains, they just explode. And then Fred would say, "Call out the National Guard," So by having bush vines and head prune vines, we got the bunches smaller berries, tougher skins, less reason to juice and for them, as we say, to grow a beard or grow botrytis on them. And bush vines also gave us much better open canopy. So if there was humidity, they dry out. There's less need to spray. And we found many other benefits of bush vines. One was that we put them in a square process without wire. That means you could travel different directions when you're driving. Because if you've got a trellising, you've got a runway, and you've got the one tractor who might go up the same way on the same width on the soil 14 times a year. That ground, as they say, is tough like a bull's forehead. So we can vary the direction, perpendicular, even at diagonals, on the square lattice, which has a great effect to the soil and manages the compaction of the soil. And of course, you've got the open canopy, and we're not worried about yield. Australia's not like Europe, where there's, you only 1 hectare. Let's make every hectare grow. You'll grow grape vines on the roof if you had a chance. Here we've got lots of land. We're just after the best possible wine we can. So that was a natural tendency. So we put all varieties we had here on bush vines. We put Merlot, we put Shiraz, we put Zinfandel, of course, and we had Cabernet. Since then, Merlot didn't work for bush vines. It got too dark, too heavy, too phenolic. The Merlot needs to have a softness and a fragrance to it. our Merlots were hard and dry and concentrated. So I've changed the way I've grown that. I trellised it. Still don't irrigate it. Zinfandel is the classic Californian Zinfandel, more Californian than, say, Puglia from Italy. Puglia from Italy is the Primitivo clone, which is Zinfandel, of course. It's a bit darker and heavier. I like my wine to be more fragrant and softer, not the big, fortified 17% and sweet and jammy. I like the more refined Zinfandel. You know, I joke it's about me being refined, which is not true at all. You know. So I learnt that from my friends in California, and anybody who doesn't follow that advice is making a mistake, because that's come from the precedents. Yeah, it came from the Italians who planted Primitivo in Northern California, and they didn't have any wire. They had a wooden stake. They probably couldn't afford to put a trellis up, so they put them on a single stake. It turns out to be the right thing to do for Zinfandel.
There you go. What kind of density do you do? Like
row
density?
So we do a very, very wide density. So we're 3 metres by 3 metres.
Gotcha.
Again, that's got to do with your tractor to a certain extent.
Right.
My old professor used to say that it's called tractor disease. You know, people do everything. First thing they do is they want a vineyard to suit their tractor. Whereas the French and Italians have said, we've got a vineyard, now build a tractor to suit our vineyard. So I've got a tractor, let's use it. Anyway, that's what happened.
There we go.
And so the original bush vines with Shiraz, I put them 1.8, which is 6 feet by 10 feet. And then I thought they were too close together, because they were growing really well into each other, so I made them 10 feet by 10 feet. Or 3 metres by 3 metres, I think it is.
Excellent.
So we would say, when we're tasting the wine here, this has nothing to do with Mudgee. This has got to do with the cultural and knowledge of making this variety around the world. All the good Zinfandels or Primitivos have this underlying Christmas cake smell about them. And as long as it's not too alcoholic, as long as it hasn't got any vinegar content, as long as it's not too sweet or tannic, I'll have it any time of the day. And it's closer to Spain than anything else, in my opinion. Tempranillos or the wines from Grenaches from Rioja.
Yeah.
That sweet, perfume Christmas cake smell, which I love. I love the drink. I found out, people asked me what does it go with, and I remember getting some recipe books from California about what to have Zinfandel with. And I found out one day, and I actually had Massaman curry here.
Oh.
And it goes with Massaman curry of all things. And of course then, because raisins in Massaman curry, it's the raisins in that.
Yeah.
People are knocked out when I tell them Massaman curry, because curries go with no wine goes with curry.
Right.
But this does.
It's fantastic.
You going to have some?
I would love to.